Welcome to the Spiritual Geek Podcast, Wisdom for Modern Times, where we focus on living with intention to consciously create a life you love and celebrate. I'm your host, Sheila Franzen, and I'm so excited to share another episode with you. Today, Dr. Amanda has joined me for a discussion about spiritual resistance to abundance and building a business. We'll probably also embark on talking about making money as a spiritual journey. Dr. Amanda, known as the Mindset Healer and Manifestation Ninja for Entrepreneurs, is the founder of Inner Power Daily, an international best-selling author and the host of a top 2% globally rated podcast called Inner Power Entrepreneur. After going from food stamps to building a six-figure business fast, it's become her superpower to teach entrepreneurs science-based law of attraction strategies to reprogram their energy, mindset, and business growth habits so they can get what they want in life and business. You can find her and start with innerpower101.com. So welcome, Dr. Amanda.
Sheila, so looking forward to our conversation today. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I've been looking forward to this one. I could talk about manifestation all day long. So is there anything else you would like to share about you, your introduction here, as we have a fun conversation about manifesting?
You nailed it. I'd love to see where it goes. First, when you said spiritual resistance to abundance and building a business, I'm like, this is such a juicy, important conversation because I think that so spiritually inclined, intuitive, sensitive people who are heart-centered and want to build a business can sometimes really struggle with letting it make money. And so I think it's a very important conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So let's dive right into that. Why do you think that is? Where do you think they get stuck? How do we, where does that originate?
Yeah, I look often at money blocks as originating in childhood, and never to blame your parents. They were doing the best they knew how to do with the tools that they had, and they were teaching you what was programmed for them. And so, when we're ages 0 to 7, we're very, we're in this space of absorbing every single thing that goes on in our surrounding, the way people feel, what they say, what they do. And so you're absorbing everything about money and about people's relationship to money. And you're not conscious of it. So it goes into your subconscious and then it plays out in your adult life and you don't really understand why it's there. But when you start to look back and bring the subconscious to the conscious, then you can start to detect and go, oh, okay, I see why that's there now. And I can decide now, do I want to shift this or keep believing this? And so, when you're young, things like your parents telling you money is the root of all evil. I see this a lot for people who were raised in certain religious ideologies. So you could hear that from preachers, parents, teachers. You could see this even on the movies, right? It'd be that idea that people who make money are greedy jerks. If you just look at the tropes in movies, we see that often the whole movie is revolving somebody in pursuit of money and they're corrupt and bad. And so we get this idea that seeking money is a bad thing. And it causes us to think that it's not spiritual to make money, or that we won't be spiritual if we make money, or somehow it's just bad or wrong to have money. And so I think of this as one of the primary money blocks that I see people struggling with, especially when they're coach types. I would imagine the people that are attracted to your podcast in particular are spiritual people, and they really can struggle with this because there's this inner conflict. I call it competing commitments, where that subconscious is battling with the conscious. And because 95% of you is run by your subconscious, if you have that subconscious belief that money is bad, or you'll turn into a bad person if you have too much money, it's always going to win out over your desire to have more money.
Yes. That whole aspect of subconscious, and I love competing commitments because I feel like that is so prevalent for people on this spiritual path, right? Because you're wanting to do good in the world. And that whole, as you mentioned, money is the root of all evil. I remember I grew up in a pretty Christian, very Christian household, and those beliefs around money, like you don't even realize you've taken them on. And I think that aspect of uncovering I mean, that's really a spiritual path in and of itself, right? Just uncovering your spiritual beliefs or uncovering your subconscious beliefs so that they become more conscious. I mean, that's a spiritual path. That's moving into more consciousness and higher consciousness and expanded awareness. Just in and of itself, that's a spiritual path. And so then focusing on this aspect of money is a culturally, depending on where you are in the world and just all the beliefs that surround it. I mean, I've done a couple of money workshops. Lynn Twist's book, gonna lose the title now in my head.
The Soul of Money, I think.
Soul of Money. I'm saying the spirit of money. And I'm like, no, it's the soul of money. I had the opportunity to hear her speak years ago after that book was released in a small little environment in a church, and she was touring around. And I'm like, it really, I mean, she talks about it from where money originated, even, and the exchange of, like if you take our current society and where we originated with money, originally we exchanged services, right? We helped each other out. And there wasn't money. And then we had coins that were created and money, and then that became power. And so I think I must be being guided to this word power, because the aspect I think that spiritual people struggle with a lot is the way that money is used, right? And it can be this thing of power. And there's just this whole resistance to that. But really, we're always trying to find, I think, just the word resistance, right? If it's finding where's the resistance, right? Is it a subconscious belief? Is it about power? Is it about culture? Like how do you identify that those beliefs and those things that we've taken on are a huge part of recognizing your resistance?
You just said so many perfect, amazing things. It's interesting because my company name, Inner Power Daily, has to do with exactly what you're talking about, because feeling powerless is a horrible feeling. When you are doing everything you know how to do and you're not getting the expected results, you feel powerless and out of control. When you are doing everything you know how to do and you're not making easier money or having your life be more financially abundant, you feel powerless. It's torture to be in survival mode and not know how to break through beyond that. When I went from food stamps to 6 figures in my business, it was an amazing liberation. And it's not that money solves all your problems. It's that the money became an outer expression of my internal transformation from feeling powerless to feeling powerful. And then the money reflected that. And so, I love to teach people that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. And if you don't like what you're getting on the outside, change what's within. Then you step into power, and now you can choose how to create your reality. And so, just like you said, it is a spiritual growth journey. It's why I love helping people work on money mindset transformation and growing businesses, because it's a spiritual journey. It's a spiritual journey into what Carl Jung says. I love this quote, and it really is the framework of my entire business and how I do everything. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And to me, that's just one of the most profound statements, that once you master that, you have the ultimate power to feel good in your life and to create whatever you decide to create. And so that, to me, is manifestation, when you have the control and the power to decide what you want and get it.
I'm just taking that quote in. I love quotes, and powerful ones like that define everything. Yeah, you call it fate, right? And we think we're living our life because of fate or because of our ancestors or because of our early childhood. And we're just living our life because it's our journey, right? It's our journey in this lifetime. If you believe in reincarnation, it's the journey this life. And what are you going to do with it right now in this moment? Are you going to let those? I was just reading a newsletter snippet from a spiritual group that I follow around ascension, and she was speaking to how our stories, right, and how the ascended masters were sharing that when we let our stories have power and we keep focusing on the stories of our past, they're the hooks, and we get stuck, right? We get stuck in those stories. We're stuck in the unconscious. We're stuck in our past, and we're not present. And so this whole aspect, because even if we're stuck in a story, there's a part of that that's unconscious. And until we get it conscious, we let those stories and those beliefs and those patterns direct our life. And we think that that's just what we're stuck with. And it's like karma isn't making you stuck in poverty. It's not like it's up for a lesson, right? It's up for an opportunity for you to transform. And do you take the opportunity to transform, or do you just keep believing, I can't have money, I don't make money, I don't deserve money, spiritual people shouldn't have money? Like any one of those, if you find yourself thinking that, then that's the part to look at, right? That's the moment right there to go, oh, I don't want to take on that story anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's so true. I love that concept that stories have power, and that when you're stuck in the past story, you can never redefine your future. And karma, I was thinking about when you said it, what popped into my mind was karma is really just the entry point. It's what you do next that's your choice of transformation. And so, every day we get to decide, do I want to keep living the life I've always been living and running the same stories over and over? And, we think of that definition of insanity where doing the same things over and over and expecting a different result is crazy. And so you've actually got to choose to reprogram yourself to get a different result. And so, what you're talking about, I have a 3-step formula that's really simple. I love creating out of my spiritual wisdom and my experiences of working with different types of entrepreneurs. I always love coming up with the simplest formula possible for people to easily remember to have as their way to transform. So, I teach law of attraction and habit transformation and behavioral change. And really it's subconscious reprogramming, because that's how the law of attraction works. So in my inner power formula, it's 3 steps. It's recognize, reframe, repeat to reprogram. So recognize, reframe, repeat to reprogram. And it sounds so simple. It's a very easy roadmap to follow in terms of the simplicity of it. What's hard is that we aren't even conscious enough to recognize our beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's like starting at step 1, people already struggle with that. They go, well, that's just the way it is. This is how it's always been. And they don't slow down enough to even get conscious of what's keeping them getting the same result. And so learning to recognize is a lifelong practice in and of itself. And then when you recognize, you go, okay, what's the reframe here? And a reframe is just a tool to do and think and feel something different. So it could be that you do a jumping jack. That's a reframe. Meditation is a reframe. Journaling, listening to a podcast, going on a walk around the block, doing EFT tapping. I mean, I could go down the list. There are a million reframes, but if you can't first slow down enough to recognize, you can't even do the reframe. And then on step 3, the only 2 things that reprogram your subconscious mind are repetition and hypnosis, because those are both how you reprogram the subconscious mind. So, hypnosis obviously happens with a hypnotherapist, or you can do it in meditation. Repeating is a choice, and it's something that you can do to change your habits so that you then get new subconscious beliefs and patterns embedded into your system, and then you can attract magnetically something different. And so it's a very easy to follow roadmap, or let's say it's a simple roadmap, but it's not that easy to do because people often are stuck in their victim stories and they want to blame the outer world for what's going on for them. And they're never going to be able to change and truly feel fulfilled if they're not willing to take radical responsibility and decide to go on the quest of spiritual growth and become mindful and start that first step, which is to recognize.
The recognize. I love how that radical responsibility. I love the word radical in so many things because it just brings that aspect of claiming it 150%, right? If you say radical, it's like you got to be willing to take not just responsibility, but radical, meaning above and beyond. And that is really, you need that in each of those steps that you outlined, like recognize. I love the slow down part. And, I think of like, I'm always listening. I love the science and the repeatability and reframe and all the tools that bring in very practical tools, as well as, your spiritual and kind of energetic tools. And I think that's the fun of like the simplicity of what you have of this, the 3 steps is like it can work whether you are the business person and living corporate America day to day, or a, healer struggling with why do I not have clients? Why do I have no money coming in? Right. Because it all starts with awareness and recognition. And then you can use whatever tools are in your realm, right? It's not like there's, like you said, one tool, there's so many, and it can go into the, clearing, for energetic clearing that, at least creates a space, right? I love that aspect of, energy healing is so much about it creates a space, but then you still have to choose, and that's your repeat to reprogram. You've got to keep choosing the new thing over and over. You can do all the clearing you want and all the awareness you want, but if you don't practice choosing and repeating to reprogram, I think that's often where if we're in this aspect of spiritual people struggling, I think they often are really aware and they have recognized a lot of them and they've tried to reframe, but they underestimate the amount of re-choosing that has to happen to reprogram. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't happen. Well, sometimes it might happen in an instant, but generally speaking, that aspect of repeat, sometimes you got to repeat it, I don't know, hundreds of times, because you've had thousands of lives where you repeated the same pattern, and you might be stuck in, energetic patterns that you don't even understand. And so to reprogram them, it takes repetition. It takes choice every day, sometimes every hour, to shift that belief or that mindset and to reprogram
it. Yes. Yeah. So much truth to what you said. I think about the people who go, people I work with, they'll say, whoa, this takes effort. It's like,
yeah, it does.
They're like, wow, I'm in it and I'm loving the transformation. And wow, I realize how much I wanted a quick pill fix. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people want that. All of us, why wouldn't we, right? Like, oh, how great if we could just take a pill and all of our problems would go away. Yet we wouldn't spiritually evolve, because you've got to have the challenges in order to grow. And so, it's interesting, especially for healers, because they do have a lot of awareness about growth and transformation. And something I see really commonly with healers is that they get stuck in the puzzle of trying to fix themselves. This must resonate for you because you're laughing.
Yep.
So, it's like they really get stuck in all the solutions and methodologies and
the tools,
modalities, to fix themselves. And really, you can live an entire life, and I'm going to use these words intentionally, trying and struggling to fix yourself. And that becomes the problem, the puzzle. And what's important to remember, if that's where you're stuck, is that you're focusing on the problem, not the solution. And so you want to start shifting your attention to the solution. So, I love to just even start with people using Affirmantras. So I teach a different method than the typical affirmations, because just like you're saying, you need a simple tool that you can repeat hundreds of times a day, because you've got to reprogram your neural wiring and your energetic makeup. And so for me, when I started, it was hundreds of times a day. I mean, so many. And then it gets less and less, because you start to reprogram yourself. And then you go, whoa, I went a week without having that thought. Now I went a month. Now I went a year. Oh, now it's gone and I'm a different person. And now it's the next spiritual quest to work on in my mind.
Right.
But, at first it takes effort. Yet you can make the effort simple by doing simple strategies that just are able to change you on repeat. And so, Affirmantras is this concept that I made up where I combined obviously the words affirmation and mantra, because you're affirming in a repetitive way. The trick, though, is that most people use affirmations very incorrectly. And what they do is create resistance. So you said it earlier, and I love that you said that, because resistance is the number one reason that we don't manifest what we want instantaneously. It's resistance. So it could be fear is the resistance, unconscious avoidance strategies, overthinking the puzzle, analysis paralysis, imposter syndrome, uncertainty, doubt, like those types of things create resistance. And so in order to start playing where you shift, you've got to say things to yourself that don't create resistance. And most people use affirmations in a way where they say something they don't believe to be true. And so right away, your subconscious goes, you're full of crap. You're not actually that. So you can't just say, I am blank, 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 and believe it if you're already using the affirmation to affirm something you think you lack. So if you say it and your subconscious doesn't believe it's true, it's going to kick it out as you being a liar and you're full of crap, and it creates resistance. So you want to use Affirmantras with a starter statement. So I love to teach starter statements to things. And in my book, I'm a Money Magnet, if they just go to IamAMoneyMagnetBook.com, they can get free chapters and find these starter statements. So play with this. So instead of saying something like, here's an example. I'm looking at my book right now. My affirmation number 20 is, I am organized and aligned for ease, joy, and flow. So this really has to do with people with scattered energy, being out of focus. In terms of, if you want to apply this to money, this is in my Money Magnet book, thinking about, okay, I say I want something in the money world, but I'm not organized and I'm procrastinating and I'm feeling misaligned. So you can use this affirmation. But if you don't believe you're organized and you say to yourself, I am organized and aligned for ease, joy, and flow, but you don't believe it, it's not going to work. And so you want to use a starter statement, something like, I prefer being organized and aligned, making money from my highest values.
I love that simple switch of I prefer. Like, that's beautiful.
So I prefer, I am learning, I am committed to, I am getting better and better at, I choose to feel organized and aligned. So you add a simple starter statement, and I have 16 in the book, and it just helps you then say a statement that you believe to be true. And now you can start to up-level your vibrational frequency and match what you say you want, and then have that be returned to you through the law of attraction or the quantum field. And so instead of creating resistance, you're creating magnetism for what you're consciously saying you want.
Which is really about alignment.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you're trying to create and reprogram and you're not in alignment, it doesn't work. I mean, I think that's where people get frustrated, particularly in this spiritual realm of the law of manifestation. It doesn't work. The law of attraction doesn't work. And it's like, well, if it's not all in alignment, it's not going to work. Like, it's just not going to work. But the thing I do, so I actually, like, when I think of an affirmation and that resistance that comes up, I love using the resistance and where it's because that's like an instantaneous, what's a subconscious belief I don't know I have. Like, I'm like, do an affirmation. And if you're like, the first thing is, I don't believe the affirmation. Well, what don't you believe? Why don't you believe it? That's your unconsciousness that needs to, like, there's a moment of the unconscious, like, crystal clear. Oh, well, why don't I believe it? Because that's how you get to those unconscious beliefs. Like, I love the shift of, I prefer, I'm learning, because it gives a way for affirmations to work. On the other hand, you can use the resistance and go, what are the beliefs? What are what are those stories that I need to let go of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's so true. Yeah. Instantly, okay, if I'm noticing that I don't actually believe this, it's telling me where to lean into recognizing what to reframe.
Right. Exactly. What do I need to reframe? That's where then, of course, an energy healing or, spiritual reading or guidance or any number of those modalities that a lot of the spiritual folks can get lost in, like using them to actually shift what you're aware of and then, move into that effort to reprogram. And I was thinking of alignment, and I'm always reading. I love reading books that people are working with, beings from beyond. And there's a book, Soul Weaving, Return to the Heart of the Mother. And she had this, like, I've read, there's so many tools out there for manifestation, but she languaged it as manifestation comes about in accordance with the alignment within your whole being. So that's exactly, what we're saying. If you have anything that, you think you're not worthy, any pattern or belief, any resistance, you're not going to be able to move forward. Right. And she gave this metaphor that I absolutely loved, is understanding that how you send out a holographic field of energy through your thoughts and feelings is to imagine the universe beyond Earth is a giant concave mirror. And whatever you think, say, or feel goes out, hits this universal mirror and bounces back to you like a boomerang. The boomerang effect returns to you in an amplified manner, whatever you've sent out. So if you complain you're broke, the universal mirror says, okay, here's this person, a conduit of universal creative energy, sending out broke. So we will return and magnify broke to them. In essence, you are saying broke is what you want. And so I'm like, it makes it like we talk about that a lot, right? Like, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. But yet imagining that there's a mirror out there. I don't know, for some reason, this visual really worked for me when I think about people like truly trying to understand how the universe is giving it back to you. It's like, if you keep saying, I'm struggling, you get it back louder. And I'm like, yeah, that is how resistance works. And that's why our thoughts and our words and our actions are so important, right? What we say, what we do, what we think, because we're just getting it back amplified.
Yeah, I so appreciate the serendipity. I just released in my podcast episode the mirror principle of manifestation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I love that visual because, if you think about how manifestation works, the beauty of it is that it's very easy for you to know your subconscious beliefs by just looking in the mirror of what's reflecting at you in your outer world. So whatever is coming to you in tangible material form tells you exactly what you're subconsciously believing. So if you're having struggles in your money, then somewhere in me, I have money blocks. And now what do I choose to change to put into the mirror? And so you just start playing with that. Okay, I choose to see myself as being more abundant, but for some reason, I'm constantly struggling. So now you get to play with, what do I believe about money? What do I believe about building a business? What do I believe about being a healer and making money? So you want to start playing with asking yourself questions. And then you can start to project into the mirror different versions of yourself because, these exist on different timelines anyway. And so you might as well start playing with it in this reality and go, okay, what would I love to see in terms of me being a healer who makes money and who feels abundant and who is wealthy? Because all you need to do is match the frequency for a few minutes in order to start to have the mirror change what's getting reflected back to you and what's being attracted back to you through the law of attraction. So the reason that most people really miss the mark on manifestation and say that it doesn't work or the law of attraction is because they forget that, just like you were saying, manifestation, it has to do with your state of being. It's not just you say, I want something, because, every single person who's listening right now, if we were hanging out in a room together or a conference room and I said, raise your hand if you want to be financially free, 100% of the room would say yes, right? Nobody would say no. Yet, how many people are actually financially free? A very small percentage. And the reason for that is because it's not what you say you want, it's how you feel and what you believe on a subconscious level that is magnetizing your reality to you and reflecting in that mirror. And so in order to get a different result, you've got to reprogram your entire state of being, which is your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your decisions. Then you'll take different actions and you'll get different results. And so most people miss that and they just go, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it actually works perfectly. You just are in denial about your thoughts, your beliefs, and your feelings.
Yes, because thoughts create feelings, create actions, create results. So yeah, you have to start with what you're thinking, and it can be really subtle and you can get lost in the thinking and not create change.
Yeah, it's important what you're saying. I debate back and forth. I just did a workshop called How to Set Manifestation-Based Goals. And I have, just like you're saying, I show them the outline of where to go back in the roadmap if you're feeling stuck in the thoughts, beliefs, feelings, decisions, actions, results. And I often go, is it thoughts or feelings first? Thoughts or feelings? Because they play off of each other so powerfully. And I think the easiest way to detect if you're in alignment is to just assess how you feel. Because your feelings are what magnetize to you. Manifestation is a conscious and unconscious declaration about what you say you want. It's just goal setting and goal achievement, right? That's more on the conscious level. The feeling is going to be more on the subconscious level. And so if you just ask yourself, how do I feel right now? So, in terms of money, how do I feel about the amount of money I have in the bank right now? that's going to tell you very clearly what you're going to magnetize. Right.
Yep.
So it's a really powerful manifestation of money question, because you go, how do I feel about the amount of money I have in the bank right now? That's a checkpoint. Then you can ask yourself, how do I feel about making money? And ask that. How do I feel about myself as a money manager? And how do I feel about my long-term wealth building? And those questions alone will give you a lot of information about what your subconscious thoughts are. Because if the feelings are stressed out, overwhelmed, scared, threatened, I don't know how to do it, that is what you're going to continue to attract in your reality. And that's what's going to reflect back to you in that mirror.
Those are really, really powerful questions. So anybody who's listening, like, go back and listen to those questions, because they can absolutely transform what you're doing and how you feel about money. I was listening to one of your recent podcasts, and you were talking about, it was the reasons why your money mindset's killing your business success. And you mentioned that this concept of working hard, right? How do you shift that belief around working hard? Because we're all always learning. And it made me think back for myself, because you mentioned, going from food stamps to six figures. And I remember in college, I was standing in a food stamp line because I was going to college, working on my own, not quite making enough money to, have my apartment and everything. And, made the choice to, do food stamps. And I can still remember standing in that line. And for me, it was an instantaneous moment of, I'm not going to do this for life. But I think what I realized, like, I was listening to your podcast and thinking about, your bio, and I was like, I made the decision, I'll work as hard as it requires, right? I'll do whatever it takes, and hard work is what will get me there. And I'm like, I probably need to let go of that one because it doesn't always have to be hard, right? Like, and I know that, and I've learned that over and over through all the manifestation work, and whether it's Neveling and focusing on how you feel, or Tom Kenyon's work, and, like, all of them talk about that alignment of feelings, intention of what you want, and feelings of, that it's already manifested. But I hadn't connected those two. Like, I mean, I grew up in the Midwest and farmers community, and everybody works hard. But I think that's where I really took it on, is that I'll do whatever it takes, because I'm not going to live this life that way. And yeah, I probably need to let go and do some clearing around that.
I would say that's one of the most common ones that I see, is you've got to work hard to make money. I think a lot of it has to do with us believing we've got to prove our worth. Yeah. And, it goes back in some ways to that topic that we were talking about at the beginning, where it's like, it's not spiritual to make money unless I work hard for it. If I work hard for it, then I can equate it to being spiritual and righteous. Right. Yeah. And so we get really stuck in that one. And, I love playing with, what if it could be easy? What if money's a fun game? What if I could fall in love with money and it's so attracted to me that it comes to me abundantly every single day? What if my money grows with ease and joy and flow and fun, and I fall in love with it? Right. I mean, think about money.
That's the fun part.
Right. Like, it's a relationship. And so I always tell people, how you feel about money right now is going to determine whether it's attracted to you or repellent to you. So it's really fun. I have people write a money story and also have them write love letters to money. So, really simple method that people could try out is to write a letter to money as if it's a person right now, and write it from the perspective of how you've been feeling in the last month or year. Let's say in 2023, how did you feel about money? Write a letter and let it know. And then whatever that is, now write the next letter as you choose it to be. Right.
Mm-hmm. And I love it.
Really powerful method to just help you see your unconscious beliefs and feelings about money. And so embodying money as a person, because it is a relationship. It's just an energy. It's a frequency. Wealth is the combination of health and well-being. And so if you want to accumulate wealth, all you need to do is vibe at a wealth vibe, which means you've got to feel free and flowing and fun and attract abundance in all areas, not just monetarily, all areas, right? You've got to feel good in your body as you make money. You've got to choose to do what it takes to feel aligned every single morning. It's why everything I do teaches people, okay, energy first, energy first, energy first. State of being comes first. no amount of force is going to compensate for your lack of alignment. And you can't get that successful ending to a miserable, stressful, struggle-filled journey. Right? So you go, okay, if it's an impossibility to get abundance in my money flow when I am feeling scarce in my mindset. That is literally an impossibility. You're never going to be able to have abundant prosperity in the bank when you feel scarce and stressed out and overwhelmed every day. And that's what most people do. They go, if I just work harder and work harder and work harder and, push harder, I'll get to the goal and then I'll relax. And it doesn't work that way. That is an impossibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you're just putting out two different messages to the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the one that's the loudest is the one that's going to reflect back the most amplified.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. So, I'm sitting here in kind of this energy of how much what you're bringing to it, and that aspect of how you start your day it's so important. Like, I wrote an article a while back on, what's the first thought of the day that you have? And then can you change it? Are you willing to change the first, literally you lay there in bed, you wake up and you start to become aware of what is the first thought you have in the day before you ever do anything. And it's like, if you take that and just begin to change that, then you move into your morning routine, like you're talking about, and the program that you have, or whatever that morning routine is. But because that sets the tone for the rest of the day of what you're going to reflect to the universe, what you're going to reflect to that mirror. And without changing that, you're not going to change your life. Like, you're just going to keep creating the same thing. And so it doesn't always have to be hard to create change, but it does require the consistent effort and action that you talk about to repeat, to reprogram. So I think, just pondering that of, people taking away the, you can change this. Like, you could listen to this podcast and the tools that have been outlined and the, the information here, it really just sometimes is a reminder that, like, what I'm hearing in this moment is so many coaches and healers and people on the spiritual path spend so much time in that aspect of just energy. And that if you want to change your physical experience of life, you actually have to come back into this 3D world and play in between, right? You got to recognize, how do you shift physical form and physical beliefs? And you can use all those tools of energy, but you're still in a 3D world. And in this 3D world, no matter how many other dimensions we play in all day long, it requires the types of things you're talking about, right? You got to recognize them. You got to reframe them. You've got to repeat them to change this physical structure, right? Our physical beliefs. And it's being grounded, right? It's being grounded in, we can be energetic and spiritual, and yet to actually change our physical experience, those two have to play together. And you can't ignore one and only, you got to use both.
Yeah, that's really powerful to feel and think about. When you say it, it's like that feeling of like, it's wild to navigate our physical bodies as spiritual people. I always think of my body as the vehicle that carries my light. And so they're co-creating. Your mind and your body are co-creating. And so it's feeding both every single day. And so with your brain is a physical, material part of your spiritual being. And, I often think of your brain, like when we think about, your subconscious and conscious and where it's stored, it's interesting to think about how we talk about that it's in your brain. Really, it's your spirit. It's like, who is the spirit who's talking about the brain that's holding the beliefs and the thoughts and the feelings, And so it's wild to consider how we get to bring the spiritual tangible and choose to be beings who are up-leveling our consciousness in a physical body and in a world of material form. And so, especially as entrepreneurs, I love helping entrepreneurs for that reason, or, really, I would say high achieving, high performing people who have often the recognition that they want more in terms of fulfillment. It's not just, success is money. No way. It's so much more than that, right?
Right.
Money is just one indicator of a version of success. True fulfillment is feeling aligned, which means that you wake up in the morning and your first thought is, oh yeah, I love being in this physical body to manifest everything I desire in this lifetime, in this body.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's perfect. Shifting to that thought shifts your whole day. So I love it.
Yeah. So cool.
Well, yeah, so cool. I could talk for hours about manifestation.
Me too.
So
years, decades. We could talk for decades.
Like when we first chatted, I was like, I'm not sure I've met somebody who actually has spent the amount of time interested in the science and the spiritual aspects of how manifestation works, right? Like I just love all the perspectives and the integration of how you've brought so many different things together that really creates such a focused program. So I really admire what you have pulled together and what you're sharing with the world. It's fun and it's needed, and it brings people into their personal power, right? I mean, when we talk about soul growth and a spiritual path, it's an aspect of, using money and wealth as just a tool that when we come to the core of it, it's being in our power. It's standing in our power to create our own life. Mm. So,
true. And thank you for the feedback. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. It's something that I geek out on this stuff all the time. I love the name of your show so much. And it's so aligned and resonant with how I feel every day. I'm like, I just like geek out on spiritual quests and manifestation and law of attraction. And I really love to make the spiritual practical for people to be able to experience fulfillment. And yes, that's my quest in everything I do. And so thank you for the feedback. It's so fun to talk to a resonant soul.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you, Dr. Amanda, for joining me today. It's just been really wonderful to connect on these different aspects of manifestation as people start the new year and are excited to create something different. The new year is always a beautiful, energetic portal to create something new and to decide to just do it differently. And there's no better time than starting a new year for that. So how can people where can people, if they wanted to work with you, what's the best place to start?
I have so many good resources. Let's say definitely just, if it's easy to remember, innerpowerdaily.com. That's that's my website. Those are my social media handles if they want all the resources, because they're right now listening to a podcast. My podcast is called Inner Power Entrepreneur. So that's an easy way to connect with me and get a ton of information. For the program we were talking about, they just go to lawofattractionforentrepreneurs.com, lawofattractionforentrepreneurs.com. And that will show you the 7-day trial of the daily program that you were referring to, where they start their day with a lesson, alignment, meditation, a journaling prompt, an Affirmantra, all to be done in 15 minutes or less to get you set up to be energetically aligned for the day so that you can then attract success your way more easily. So that program is so fun. I love that program so much. So lawofattractionforentrepreneurs.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. It's been wonderful to have you join me and have this fun conversation about manifestation.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was pure joy.
You've just listened to the Spiritual Geek Podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed the episode, be sure to share a comment and rating on your favorite podcast platform. If you were inspired, consider sharing with friends and family. Love and light to each of you, and may your day be filled with joy and wisdom as you consciously manifest your life. Thank you, everyone.